Yeah, okay. Good morning. We'll get started with this morning's agenda. First thing is unfinished business. First application that we will be hearing is application 8, 2018-28, which is 66 West Ave. Is anyone here in support or opposition? Come forward, please.
Morning.
Good morning. Your name?
Roman Zicki. I'm here on behalf of the owner.
All right. You're the applicant?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Pardon me?
Have you had an opportunity
Yes.
to review staff's report? They're recommending approval with conditions. Do you have any questions or comments?
No.
Nothing? You understand the conditions? The one thing that I had noted, the question to traffic is, I see the comments about the visibility, the daylight triangle. Recommendation is in clause 1, I assume it's covered there, it's just to conform and with approved site drawings and building elevation drawings. Would it maybe be advisable to just ensure or add the wording that we'd like to ensure the visibility through the porch in that wording as well, just to tighten it down a little bit?
Through you, Mr. Chair, part of the application is a request for a reduction in that driveway visibility triangle that was identified through the review. So as part of the recommendation that's presented by planning staff, there is a DVT reduction from 4.57 meters to 2.65 meters. And that is to reflect the situation of the building that was designed to be compatible with the existing streetscape. Part of the reason that DVT has been reduced is because the building has been brought forward in line with the rest of the street. And following last month's meeting, the plan was revised to add a porch, which follows the same design rhythm as the rest of the streetscape.
Bear with me here. So I think what I might like to see is just, as part of the consideration, is just to maybe add some wording into clause number 1, specifically to ensure visibility through the porch. Just to tighten it down, that's all. That's what I was suggesting.
The staff would be fine with that.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments? To the right there.
Yes, I do have one question, Mr. Chair. Which option is approved? There are two options in the file there. Like, I see option number 1 here. And then I see different elevations. And also, what is this red block on the survey plan?
Through the chair, the elevation drawings that were attached, there's 2 reports in front of you. One that was presented to the Committee of Adjustment at the last meeting, and there is a new report which contains appendices which include a survey sketch as well as revised elevations. What we would be asking the Committee of Adjustment to do is to consider the elevations that are attached to my April 5th report.
Which would be the option 1, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application as noted and revised in the staff report.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, next application is applications number B 2018 06, 07, 08, and 09. This is 883 Dune Village Road. Anyone here in support or opposition to these applications? Come forward, please. Yeah, I'd give it to you. Yeah. Okay, I think to make this easy, okay, I'm going to hand this over at this point right now to Andrew, since he was the one that chaired this past meeting, in order to keep some consistency, and I'll chime in when I need to.
All right. All right, thank you, everybody. Good morning. I think because we had a lot of changes that have happened, I understand that there was a public meeting. Maybe staff could bring us up to speed quickly on what had happened with and at that meeting and what kind of residential impact or input was given.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did hold a neighborhood information meeting at Dune Valley Golf Course on March 22nd. The purpose of that meeting was to inform the public about the process that staff had undertaken and the review that we had done. We discussed both Planning Act and Heritage Act matters and how they were relevant to the subject property as well as to the applications at hand. And approximately 80 people were in attendance at the meeting. And the meeting was about 2 hours in length. We did also hold a question and answer period. It was about 45 minutes in length, and we took questions from the neighborhood, responded to different concerns that they had, and we felt that we've answered the questions adequately. We've also posted the information from the neighborhood information meeting, including the slides from the PowerPoint presentation and the meeting notes, informal minutes basically, to the city's website. We've also posted the information that's in the memo that's before you today to the city's website. The new information includes the heritage designating bylaw, the HIA, correspondence regarding previous severance inquiries, the Heritage Kitchener minutes at which this proposal was discussed, the neighborhood information meeting PowerPoint slides, and the notes that I referred to earlier.
Thank you. Mr. Aston, did you want to have the floor for a minute here?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what I just want to present at this point, we gave a lengthy presentation at the last meeting and went through provincial policy and the official plan, and that the lands are designated, that the proposal conforms to the current zoning, so there's no...
Mr. Aston, maybe you could just give a quick synopsis of that, just really Cole's notes, just for the fellow committee
Sure.
members who weren't here at that time. Just like, you know, I'm sure that they have a good understanding of it, so if you could just give them a Cole's notes version of that.
Sure, absolutely, and thanks for that. I didn't want to repeat too much. But we've had a chance to work with staff throughout this process. We started into the process with pre-application meeting, whereby staff identified the studies that would be required. Those studies were completed and submitted. One of those studies was the Heritage Impact Assessment, which the scope of that was reviewed and determined with staff. Heritage staff wrote a report and presented that to the Heritage Committee. So what's being proposed has been considered at the Heritage Committee. Staff have taken the input from the Heritage Committee, and planning staff have built that into the recommendation that's before you in support of the applications. The applications were circulated to the agencies. There were no agency concerns raised. We've worked with the city through the conditions and have no concerns on the conditions that are being put forward with the recommendation. I think to summarize in the planning framework, we're talking about lands within the built boundary, considering intensification and infill policies. Those are directing this type of development to occur. The official plan designates the property low-rise residential. That permits single detached residential. The lands are zoned, I believe it's R4. The R4 zone permits single detached residential. The lots that are proposed meet the zoning regulations. There's no variances being requested. They just simply meet the requirements. So when looking at those policies and zoning regulations, we've concluded and staff have concluded that the proposed consent applications are appropriate. So we're in line with provincial, regional, local policy. We were deferred from the last meeting for additional information to be provided on heritage, which has been provided, and for a neighborhood information meeting, which has occurred. And I would suggest to you that staff have followed up and confirmed their recommendation to support the approval of the lots as proposed.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I should have, sorry, Mr. Head. Bob and Ali LaFrance are here with me today. They didn't speak last meeting. They were prepared to speak this meeting, but I think in your comment to kind of summarize where we're at, you know, they're prepared to speak if you'd like to hear from them on where they're at in the process that they've been in, but you could come back to us after as well once you hear other comments if you wish.
Why don't we run through the people who are in opposition at this time, and then we'll come back one last time for you guys, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to ask very kindly, the sound in this room can be very difficult. Having sat where you sit and now sitting here, can I kindly ask that we all make sure we put the microphones as close as possible to our mouths? That way everybody can hear what's happening. Thanks so much.
That one I'll speak up too. Okay, I know that we've had a lot of residents out here a lot of time, and in the effort to save a little bit of time and effort on this, if we can really keep this short, I'm going to start running the shot clock on you guys. I understand that it's a sensitive issue, but we've been here before, and you know the committee members have a good idea of what is happening and what is happening out there. So let's really try not to regurgitate stuff that's already been said. We understand where your positions are, and we'll start with you. If you could always state your name for the record and where you live, please.
Hi, I'm Irene Hoffman. I live at 58 Bechtel Drive. I want you to imagine more than 500 people standing behind me today, more than 500 residents who value this heritage site as an important part of our community. Imagine 524 people who are so eager to protect this special dune property that they jumped at signing our petition, a petition I have with me here today. And I'd like to hand it to whomever is supposed to take this. Would you please give the committee those pictures? So I speak for more than 500 people who oppose this application, who don't want this property severed, who don't want this coach house moved. More than 500 people. Had the weather been kinder this weekend, I'm convinced that we would have obtained many more signatures. Canvassing the neighborhood was no challenge at all because people desperately wanted to sign this petition. In fact, they took the paper right out of my hands before I finished asking the question. Other canvassers had the same experience. Residents were very receptive to our petition, and we've learned a lot of how people feel here about this property. I'd like to quote some of what I heard, and I don't want to offend the Francis. I'm just going to quote what I heard. First and most often, people said, I thought this was protected. Someone else said, that's an important part of our community. How can they do that? How can they want to do that? Why would anyone want to destroy it? Move the coach house, but that's how I know I've arrived in Dune.
Yeah, just hold on a second. I think we need to really keep this into the scope of why we're here. You know, I don't want to be here to discuss what people's thoughts are. This is not the forum for that.
I'm here to point out how the community feels about this special property.
If we can keep it to the point of the report and the impacts, you know, this is what I'm trying to understanding that if I let you talk about everybody's opinions and thoughts, you know, we're going to, it's not whether what they're doing to the property, that's their property. And, you know, if somebody has an opinion on it, we can't really entertain that here. We'll be here all day and all night.
Okay, then I will leave their comments out. And I will speak to the petition itself, not the report.
Okay, thank you.
This petition, with 524 signatures, demonstrates that this heritage site, as it stands today, is of great value to our community. The whole site, not just the buildings. The landscape gives context to those buildings. They would be nothing without the land around them. The buildings plus the land give meaning and the feel and sense of place. They're interconnected. Together they tell a story of early agricultural life. But if you move the barn closer, they're not listening. If you move the barn closer, if you decrease the size of the land, you alter the story. I'm going to start over because you've disrupted me. Pardon? I'm good. So they're interconnected. Together they tell a story of early agricultural life. But if you move that barn closer to the farmhouse, if you decrease the land around it, the story, the sense of place will be lost, and lost forever. The Heritage Act may have changed since this designation of this property, but the property hasn't. The value of the whole property to the community hasn't changed. It has actually increased over time as residents see more and more heritage sites threatened in a city that is very poor at protecting them. We value what we have here, a link to our history, a link to our heritage, and our rural roots. Even though certain city staff and the current owners don't see it, residents of this area do feel a sense of connection to this heritage site. They view it as being a special part of our neighborhood, a valued historic site in the Dune Pioneer Park community, and all of these signatures prove that. Through this petition, the community has raised its voice to retain this special 1.3 acres. We know how more than 500 people feel and how the wider community feel. Without any doubt, they want this whole property protected. They want to maintain the presence that the whole property gives to our community. We ask you to deny this application and respectfully asks you to deny the owner's request to sever this property. If you allow this severance, you'll be allowing them to turn this cultural heritage landscape into an ordinary suburban lot. You'll be going against the wishes of over 500 citizens. But if you deny their request, you will be protecting and preserving the heritage and cultural sanctity of this special dune property and the historic buildings on it. That's what I and over 500 people asked for today.
Great, thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Ross Hoffman. I live at 58 Bechtel Drive as well. I'd like to start with a quote from the City of Kitchener Heritage webpage, and it says, "Our community is fortunate to be made up of heritage buildings, properties, and neighborhoods that have stood the test of time. It's our collective responsibility to conserve and protect them." And on to significant views, which are the points I make. The first one, and there are color copies of these pictures that were handed out. Yes, they are. And I'll refer to the images. So image A1 is a current view of the site from the four-way stop at Dune Village Road and Bechtel Drive. This view has not been taken into consideration as being significant by the HIA or staff. I say this view is significant because it complies to all the criteria of Bylaw 8452 and actually of the staff report. It's from Dune Village Road, so it's historic. Both the main house and the coach house can be seen. The main house is west facade with the small square windows, etc., is partially obstructed by tree and hedge plantings. However, the HIA report states that, and I quote, "Obstruction of views by plantings is considered temporary, as plantings are not heritage attributes and can be altered." Personally, I find this obstruction of the view to be enticing, making one want to see more of the house around the corner. If this proposal is approved, this view would change completely, as images A2 and A3 are conceptual images depending on what style of house would be put there and how many trees would be retained. This trademark view of the Dune Pioneer Park community would no longer be significant. It would be gone. And B1, the second view is the current view from Bechtel Drive looking east towards the west facade of the main house with its attributes. Most of them can be seen. The veranda can be seen if you take a few steps to the right. Only the front facade and the door cannot be seen from here. The HIA report and staff report deem this view to be not significant because it is not historic and was only made available when this subdivision was built in the 1980s. And the need for this view to be related to the front facade should be ignored. The HIA and staff report use the words primary and only in describing the front facade of the main house is misleading and shows bias. There is no limiting adjectives in the bylaw list of designated heritage attributes. Hence, all are of equal importance. Nor is the entire house listed as a heritage attribute, just 9 parts of it. I maintain that this view was always there, though not necessarily from the public realm. The need for the significant view to be from the public realm is negated by the HI statement that, and I quote, "primary view of the property is located on the private realm looking south from the front to the front elevation of the dwelling." Also, city staff has stipulated that this same private realm view in its revised list of heritage attributes to be used to amend the bylaw. Further, this view and all views of this property, for that matter, were only made historic by the enactment of the bylaw 8452 in 1984. Bechtel Drive was already in place several years before 1984. And again, conceptual images B2 and B3 show what could happen. So the site from Bechtel Drive would certainly not be significant and it would be lost forever.
1 minute.
Yeah. Oh, 1 minute left. Okay. So just the second part I'd like to talk about briefly is the amending of bylaw 8452. One of city staff's preconditions for issuing any building permits to this site is that the designated bylaw shall be amended to, among other things, list the coach house as a designated heritage attribute of this property. This suggests that issuing any building permit now would go against the bylaw as it stands. Also, if bylaw 8452 is amended first, the coach house could not then be moved as proposed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. My name is Yvonne Fernandez, 52 Kilburney Court, Kitchener. I'd like to share a few other additional pieces of information with you this morning. I want to make a point that this is not really about intensification. This is also about heritage attributes. While reviewing the documents, the HIA, the provincial policy statement, speaking with the Heritage Committee Chair, and looking at the mapping from the subdivision of 1978, I believe that I can provide a few additional points here. Changes in the 2005 Ontario Heritage Act, backed up by the provincial policy statement, defines heritage attributes as the principal features, characteristics, context, and appearance that contribute to the cultural heritage significance of a protected heritage property. Also, a designated heritage building may contain significant cultural heritage landscape features, such as gardens, narrow streetscape patterns, prominent structures. These features and views to and from them can support the significance of the property and may be considered to be heritage attributes. And I think that's very important for us to remember today. While reviewing the subdivision plan, it was interesting to note that Major Holdings, who own the entire property at one point, including 88 Dune Village Road, 883, when subdividing, decided and chose to protect the entire site of 883. Major Holdings sold the property to the McBrides in or about 1971 with conditions related to septic, municipal services, existing barn, and outbuildings. There was a minor adjustment to the boundary. There doesn't seem to be any indication that Major Holdings planned to hold on to the lands facing the future Bechtel Drive for additional housing development. Anecdotally, I have learned that Major Holdings was known for their interest in preserving heritage and natural lands while developing subdivisions. I'd like to furthermore point out that as we intensify our city, our remaining stock of historic buildings and sites are diminishing. In particular, on this site, it is imperative to note that the Hen Hog House acts as a gateway into the Dune Pioneer Park area. The ability to see the outbuilding and the openness allows the residents to have a view of the historic house. Additionally, it is the relationship that the Hog Hen House has to the main house that is part of the history and culture. Suggesting that moving the Hog Hen House changes the historical story is what is important. This changes the gateway, the feeling for the pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers as they approach the subdivision from Pioneer Drive and Bechtel Drive. In conclusion, I want to state that we can argue back and forth about whether the dwelling was intended to be preserved entirely in 1984. But as I've mentioned, this lot was excluded from the subdivision plan in the 1970s in what I believe was the intent to preserve and set aside the entire property. If the designation was brought forward after the 2005 provincial policy statement and the Ontario Heritage Act, it would have been designated and we would be talking about the entire property. I urge the committee to decline the recommendation to permit the severance of this property so that the owners are allowed to build 4 new homes. I would be amiss to not recognize there was financial gain for these owners and gain that was denied by the previous owner. Thank you.
Thanks. Yvonne, just one quick comment. Just given your position in the city, I think it's important to note that are you here as a public citizen?
I am here as a citizen.
Okay,
correct.
Thanks. I just wanted that noted. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Hello, my name is Shelley McCullough, and I'm the owner of 4 Cobblestone Street. My property is the one that the proposed lot number 4 will abut. I'm here today to talk about the points that Kelly Kuziak, who resides at 19 Carindale Drive, addressed in her letter that was submitted to Holly Dyson on March 31st. Unfortunately, Kelly was unable to attend today, so I've been asked to speak on her behalf. But I would like to mention that while Kelly wrote that letter, I am of the same opinion. In the interest of time, I noticed that a number of my points and the points from Kelly's letter were the same as Yvonne's in regards to major holdings and the original way that the property was kept with the community. So I won't mention those again right now, but I am just here to respectfully ask that you deny this application, respecting the original severance and its subsequent heritage designation that was done in the spirit of maintaining the whole property for its historical significance to our rural roots and for future generations to enjoy. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, my name is Tim Keller. I am the last owner of 883 Dune Village Road prior to the current owners, and I have some concerns with the proposed severance application. In April 2006, the ownership of 883 Dune Village Road was transferred to the estate of my deceased parents, I myself being one of the executors of the estate. In preparing for the sale of the property and to arrive at a fair market value, the estate decided to request a possible severance to arrive at a price for listing the property. On October 12, 2006, a request into the possible severance was sent to the City of Kitchener Heritage Planning Department addressed to Leon Bensasson. In this request, it stated they were looking into the possibility of severing the property in half, leaving the existing home with a frontage of 120 feet on Dune Village Road and severing lots on the Bechtel Drive side, which would have a frontage of 240 feet and a depth of 120 feet. On October 18, 2006, we received a reply from Leon acknowledging the receipt of our request and asking for permission to walk the grounds and take photographs as part of their evaluation and analysis. This request was immediately granted. On January 30th, 2007, close to 3.5 months after the initial request, the estate finally received a reply to our request of possible severance. In the email, it apologizes for the delay, but states that after careful consideration, they would not support our request. The Heritage Planning Department states that the stone outbuilding, or the hog and hen house, the curved tree-lined driveway, and the views of the property would be negatively impacted. Loss of these significant features would greatly diminish the heritage qualities of the property. It goes on to say that a consent application to permit the severance as described in your letter would not be supported from a cultural heritage planning standpoint. This would protect the individual significant attributes of the property as well as the heritage character and context of the whole property. Now fast forward to the current proposed severance of 883 Dune Village Road. It is almost exactly the same proposal we, the estate, requested in 2006, yet ours was not supported. At the public information meeting on March 22nd of this year, during the question period, I myself asked Michelle Drake why she's approving this severance request but didn't approve our request. Ms. Drake assured me that our request was different in that it was one for one large lot fronting Dune Village Road and the proposed demolition of the hog and hen house. The estate was in attendance of this meeting and confirmed to Ms. Drake that she was incorrect and that was not requested. Ms. Drake insisted that she had emails of correspondence and sketches confirming her statement. On the following day, March 23rd, I requested copies of the sketches and email. I myself still have not received a reply from Ms. Drake other than a return receipt on my computer stating that it was read. Ms. Drake ended up sending the request to one of the other executors of the estate who was fortunate enough to forward it to me. Should I have not been informed of this info being sent to my sibling instead of me who requested it? After finally receiving a copy of the original request from my sibling and reading through it, nowhere does it state that our intentions were to sever one large lot fronting Dune Village Road or the demolition of the hog and hen house. I am not sure where Heritage Planning Department came to the conclusion of the demolition of the hog and hen house or the large one lot fronting Dune Village Road in our proposed severance. With this lack of understanding of a simple and easy to understand request, I do not feel confident that the Heritage Planning Department or Ms. Drake took proper consideration as to grant approval of this heritage impact assessment and the proposed severance request by the current owners of Dune Village. If minor mistakes were made just reading our simple request, how many major mistakes were made reading the heritage impact assessment and subsequently approving it? Do you want another situation as with the Joseph Snyder House in Kitchener? The City of Kitchener has now approved the demolition of houses built adjacent to this Joseph Snyder House after owning the houses for more than 30 years. The city says that this demolition of the current houses will restore more of the feel and look of the original farm setting. This is the exact same farm setting that 883 Dune Village Road has right now and will be taken away if this severance application is approved. In closing, you can see that I myself am in total opposition of this severance, as well as the neighbors in the area, people outside of the area, and the Dune Pioneer Park community. This application should never have made it this far. It should have been noted that the previous similar request for severance was not approved. I myself would have purchased the property had I known how lacking the Heritage Planning Department is in realizing that what constitutes as a heritage property and the factors that contribute to the heritage of the whole property. I would have preserved the entire property as a whole as the original heritage designation intended to back in 1984, not just a portion of property in order to gain financially. I please ask you, do not approve this severance application.
Thank you. I got a couple quick questions for you. Did you submit a application to the Committee of Adjustment for the subject lands? Did you submit an application to the committee?
We didn't send an application because they said it right away with our emails that they would not approve it.
Did you supply a heritage impact assessment to?
They didn't
staff?
require that back then. In 2006, it wasn't required. It wasn't until, I believe, 2010 that they required that.
Maybe we could get staff to comment on that, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. What Mr. Keller indicated is that the changes to the provincial policy statement came into effect in 2012, which enabled municipalities to ask for heritage impact assessments as part of all development complete applications.
Great, thank you. So there was no formal application actually submitted based upon staff's comments at that time. Am I clear on that?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Could I also note that the memo that was about the updated in the community public meeting is incorrect in they're saying that it's one lot. That is not what we requested. So the public's seeing that we requested one lot, that is not what we requested.
Okay, from the last meeting, I recall something on the sidelines that you had looked at the idea of severing two lots at that potential time, and that was kind of something that was under consideration. And am I correct in that?
It wasn't that we requested two lots. That was the Heritage possible compromise, was that they would allow two lots instead of four.
So Heritage replied back to you that they would be able to support two severed lots instead of four without the heritage impact assessment to confirm the dynamic and the views and the heritage aspects of it.
It didn't really say they supported it. It just said this is an option that would be considered, but then they would have to review that also. But again, they said they didn't support it.
Stephanie Keller, 513 Carindale Drive. I can't imagine that allowing building new houses, a miniature subdivision as it's being called, will do to increase and preserve the heritage of this historic landmark. There's talk of designating the coach house after they move it, but to me that seems a little backwards. This should happen to be designated as it sits, as it's built in relation to the house. When the designation happened in 1984, the Heritage Act was a mere 5 years old, and I'm sure it wasn't foreseeable that the whole lands would need their own designation. More implied due to the relationship of the structure to the whole lands. City Heritage Planner Leon Benison is on record saying little attention has been paid in the last 8 years to designating properties, which gives them a much greater heritage protection. We haven't been concentrating much on designation. We are lagging behind other municipalities on a per capita basis. I feel that had more attention been paid to designation of properties, we would not have this issue to deal with today, and that this should be grandfathered into designation. I'm asking you to consider whether the financial gain for some outweighs the heritage importance of the community.
Great, thank you very much.
I'd like to hear from Heritage Just in regards to some of these comments, please. And just to reiterate your position that you've taken in regards to this recommendation in the report.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think I have made it very clear through both this meeting, previous meetings, and public meetings that Heritage Planning staff support the severance subject to a number of conditions. In terms of some of the comments that we are hearing from concerned citizens today, again, many of those concerns were previously raised, all of those concerns were previously raised to staff, both the file planner, Andrew, and myself. And we have responded to that both through the neighborhood information meeting as well as all of the follow-up materials that were provided to the committee. I can touch on a few things. There was a comment about the Heritage Act being different. That was incorrect. The Heritage Act, at least in terms of the processes by which an owner is required to obtain approval, has not changed. What has changed is what's called Ontario Regulation 906, which is a regulation that identifies the criteria for determining cultural heritage value and significance. That criteria was used in the HIA evaluation of the current property as it stands today. We have heard many comments about the views. We also spoke to those comments at the neighborhood information meeting. There was a slide devoted to that particular topic where we explained that just because you can see something from the street does not mean that that is a significant view. It may be an interesting view, it may be a pleasant view, it does not necessarily mean that is significant. We did provide examples to the residents so that they could understand what would constitute a significant view. And so, for example, one of those was what we call the Robert Ferry Log House, which is a house that used to face Tilt Drive, which is now a trail, as part of that subdivision process, the views to the front elevation were conserved by actually putting a park space in front of the actual house, between the former road on Tilt and the house itself. We had also heard concerns about the relationship between the buildings and the importance history that tells. It is my opinion that that history is not lost. One of the really important components of heritage conservation is allowing for adaptive reuse and continued use, and this particular proposal is doing just such and allowing not only the property but the buildings to be used ongoing into the future. I know there are concerns from previous owners around conversations that took place. I was not party to those conversations. All I know is the written documentation that is in the file. Irrespective of those conversations, I reviewed the application that's before the committee today based on the current Planning Act, the current regional official plan, the current city official plan, and the current provincial policy statement. There was also reference to the Joseph Schneider House and views that were acknowledged by City Council. I just want to be on record that Heritage Planning staff did not support the demolition of those houses because it was my opinion that those views did not exist and were not significant.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Julian?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe we have a few additional other points of clarification if you would indulge staff for a couple of more minutes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to respond to Councillor Fernandez's comment about the original formation of the property. In my research, there is no evidence to support the idea that the subject property was created with heritage matters in mind. Neither is there any evidence to support the idea that the surrounding subdivision that was established in the 1970s attempted to preserve the size or dimensions of the subject property for heritage reasons or otherwise. The fact is that the subdivision did not speak to the subject property at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of comments at this point in time in regards to the recommendation. If we're going to be looking at consideration of this recommendation, one way or the other, is there's regional conditions that need to be addressed. The other thing is as it deals with the letter of credits, I'd like to see maybe we should have some wording in there that addresses the release of the letter of credit so that it's not open-ended. Yes, Julian?
I forgot to mention that I believe there are some people here in support of the application too, so perhaps they might want to speak as well.
Okay. Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, with respect to the letter of credit, the Heritage Covenant will outline all of the parameters around how that will be taken, when that will be taken, and when that will be released.
So it is covered off then?
Correct.
All right. The other question that I had is why would there be consideration of releasing the Heritage Covenant? Wouldn't you want to see that, the covenant agreement? Would you not want to see something left in perpetuity so you ensure that it's maintained?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the intent of the Heritage Covenant is to enable the city to take the letter of credit and require additional measures that mitigate any potential risk associated with moving the coach house. The correct tool to apply in perpetuity to the property is the designating bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak. My name is John Gazzola. I reside at 121 Uplands Drive in Kitchener, where I have resided for about 56 years. I'm here to speak in support of the applicants. I find myself in a very different position because in my public life, I do sit on city council, and I'm normally in support of large neighborhood delegations. I'm usually very much in support of the current councillor for that ward. As a member of council, I did represent that part of the ward for about 8 years. I'm not going to get into a great deal of facts about this situation, this application. It was dealt with by our very capable heritage staff, planning staff. I must also say that I currently sit on the Heritage Committee, which I have sat on for almost 15 years now, and the Heritage Impact Assessment was brought to the Heritage Committee, which have the opportunity, they don't have an opportunity to approve it or disapprove of it, but they do have an opportunity to raise issues. And when this came to the Heritage Committee, questions were raised, but it was generally the members of the Heritage Committee were in approval of the application. I must say, I can't see how much time I must say I do have a conflict that I will mention up front, and I'm not sure that it's a real conflict of interest because there's no gain to me, but I did attend university with the father of the young lady that's part of the application, but I want to state that up front so everyone knows that. This is really a question to me of all the rules and regulations that have been in place were followed. It was dealt with by the Heritage Committee. I really believe that the laws of the land have been followed by the applicants. I'm here really to just commend the applicant for what they've done already in maintaining that property for everyone to enjoy, and maintaining it at a great cost. And not only that, in what they're planning to do here also is at a great cost. So they have committed a lot of sweat and energy into this property. Just 2 or 3 years ago, they were given an award by the community for what they had already done to the house on that property. And so I think they need to be commended for that. Also, I wanted to mention that it's, and it goes, and her family have taken over the Bethsner property and have continued to improve that property for the heritage of our community, and for a great deal to do with heritage. I'm going to end my support here by comparing what these people have done with the Shirk property that today, which is in the ownership of people with substantially more wealth, and we can see what's happened to that property. So I speak in support of the applicants. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Gazzola. Is there anyone else that we haven't heard from yet that wants to speak on this issue? Sure.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to address you. My name is Beth Hansen. I am an owner of a heritage property at 300 Joseph Shore Crescent in Kitchener. I've lived there for 2.5 years. I also own a heritage property in the city of Markham. My property is a level 4 designation with a conservation easement. I am here today in support of the applicants of 883 Dune Village Road, and I wish to represent them from a heritage ownership perspective. Heritage properties require considerably more time, money, planning, and skilled artisans to restore than a typical property. After 5 years of diligently working to improve the conditions of their home and investing in rehabilitation projects with no end in sight, the applicants began exploring the possibility of a severance with the notion of funding further improvements to the property with proceeds from development. I have followed the efforts of the applicants for well over a year. I have attended the Heritage Committee meetings with review of the severance application when it was discussed. I also attended the last Committee of Adjustment meeting, so I'm well aware of the proceedings that have taken place and the protocols required for any type of alterations to a heritage property. The applicants have satisfied each requirement made of them, and they are well within their right to sever these lands, given the R4 zoning. Some opposition members accuse them of being greedy or profits over heritage, which is not the intention of this application. If, in fact, restraint has been shown, given the applicants are not proposing to build 7 lots, latitude which is permitted in R4 zoning. The applicants intend to live at the property during and after alterations, as this is their family home. They have vested interest in any development to ensure ongoing use and enjoyment of their property. People who live at and invest in heritage properties do so because they want to own a piece of history. We become stewards of the property and accept that we share our properties with others who intrinsically enjoy it. But here's where ownership of these vestiges of the past is not fun. We are subject to unwarranted and unrealistic expectations and encroachments by the public, who feel their opinions matter more than those of the homeowner. We pay the bills. The public does not. The subject property is on private land, and I ask how you would feel if you were the subject of such personal scrutiny as the LaFrances have been regarding their application. Some opposition have argued the applicants are not good stewards of the property. Yet, as Mr. Gazzola mentioned, they receive recognition from the city with the Mike Wagner Heritage Award in 2015, and they have also participated annually in heritage grant programs which subsidizes maintenance and rehabilitation projects of designated original property attributes. During the last Committee of Adjustment meeting, there were clearly 3 issues that were vocalized by the opposition relating to this application. Basically, the deferral of the planning decision and the City of Kitchener Community Information Session addressed all these aforementioned concerns. Opposition has had time to educate themselves to protocols of development applications and the rationale and status of the heritage designation of the subject property. The merits of the application have been clearly defined, and any opposition at this point in time is simply NIMBYism. The applicants are well within their rights to develop the property as per the permissions they've been granted through the Heritage Committee and City of Kitchener Planning Reviews Department. The applicants intend to relocate the Hog and Hen Barn to the retained lot at a considerable expense to keep the two character attributes within context of each other. This is not a case of profits over heritage or greed. Shame on anyone who has pushed that agenda. The application would allow 4 new families to enjoy the Dune community, and proceeds would fund ongoing preservation of the subject property, which can still be enjoyed by the community at large from the north elevation of the historically relevant perspective for the public realm. The Committee of Adjustment should approve this severance. It has received unwavering staff reports and approval to proceed, even after the deferral and additional review. The intensification is in an identified growth area, and the applicants have been respectful of maintaining and protecting heritage and character attributes of the property throughout this application. Your approval of the application also sends a message to heritage homeowners that you support us as we work to preserve like character properties. These links to the past are not meant to be live-in museums. They are standing today because people like the LaFrances or myself commit to personally investing in these properties, preserving them through rehabilitation efforts. Lastly, your approval of the application validates the opinions of staff and committee at City of Kitchener for the work they have done on this application. Quite simply, the applicant's plan for development satisfies all criterion set by planning and heritage divisions and for economic and regional growth initiatives. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that the purpose of this committee is to consider planning issues and focus specifically on planning issues. So with that in mind, do either of you have any questions or comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have one question to the staff. Bylaw number 8452 has this point number 2, which states that this bylaw to be registered against the whole property. So as per staff report on page number 11, where it says that this will be amended. So does that mean that this point will be removed from this bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Chair, as was outlined in some of the materials provided through the memo, as well as the neighborhood information materials, all designating bylaws apply to real property, meaning the whole property, and then the bylaws further go on to explain the part of the real property that is of significance. So with the recommendation to amend the designating bylaw, it will continue to apply to the whole property. If the severance is granted, it will apply to the whole of the retained lands that contain the Brubaker farmhouse and the coach house, as you've heard it referred to, or the hog and hen house. They're the same thing. The bylaw would apply to the whole property, but it would then outline the parts of the property that are of significance and therefore protected.
Through Mr. Chair, then the follow-up question would be like, so will not this considered be as altering the whole property, part of the bylaw? Like as OHA says that like alter means change, so does this mean that this is altering the property? So that doesn't come under that OHA regulation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the Ontario Heritage Act refers to the requirement for an owner to receive consent from council for alterations that are likely to affect the heritage attributes. The heritage attributes are identified in the bylaw as the part of the bylaw that is of significance. So the whole property was not identified as a heritage attribute. So the application for consent does not require a heritage permit under the Heritage Act.
Any more questions? Call for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to, through you, make a motion based upon staff reports, the undeniable planning evidence and process that is in front of us. I'm going to support the application as noted in the staff report, and I make motion for approval.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Yeah, sure. I'm just going to take a 5-minute break.
Yes. Yes.
If anyone is here for the upcoming meeting for the applications that are about to be heard, if you have not yet signed in, please come down and sign in. Thank you.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I'll be back. Sure. Thank you.
Go down here. Sure, sure. All right.
We're good to go? All right. Let's get started with this morning's agenda, regular agenda. First application is A 2018-24, 2 Crossbridge Ave. Anyone here in support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Pat Haramis. I'm acting as agent for the owner. I've read the report and all is good.
Okay, it's a fairly straightforward application. Any questions, comments?
Just one comment. I'd like to make a motion to approve this subject to the staff report as outlined.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-30, 397 Greenfield Ave. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning. My name is Octavian Adrian Rasu. I'm the owner of the property. I'm here to support.
Okay, staff's recommendation was approval with conditions, but I don't believe there is any conditions, is there? No. Any questions or comments? Nothing? Motion?
Through Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to this application be approved with no conditions.
Second? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-31, 20 Hearst Ave, Unit 1. Support or opposition? Good morning. Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any questions or comments?
No, it's quite straightforward.
Straightforward. I don't believe there was not any third-party agency comments. Comments, questions, motion?
I just have one question for the applicant. It says here it's for a retail use. What is proposed for the retail use?
Oh, the space is actually already for retail, but the reality is I am a food processor. So basically I make bottled sauce.
And you just want to have the option to be able to retail sales out of there for people who pop in, pop out?
Yeah, just with some sauce on the shelf.
All right, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to note that there are GRCA regulations attached to this file as well as some comments. I'd like to make motion to approve this as set out in the staff report.
All right, second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application, A 2018-33, 14 Ellen Street West. Support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning.
Hey.
Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yep.
Recommending approval with conditions. Do you have any questions or comments?
Nope.
Anyone else?
I have no questions, but I would like to add one thing. I think I questioned the timelines for him to be able to get the approvals for September 1st, 2018. I think that's a little bit tight in the timelines. You hit one bump in the system and you can get really bounced. I would like to make recommendation that we change that to maybe December 1st, just to give him a couple extra months.
Sure. All right. Recommendation is amended to December. All right.
Okay, through Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion this application to be approved as amended.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is A 2018-34, 731 Huron Road, 160 Rochford Street. Morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Brandon Llewellyn. I'm here as the agent for the owner of the property. In full support of the staff report as written. We're going through a site plan process. We've gone through a draft plan, zone change process. So this is just sort of the last portion of it.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments? Straightforward application.
I don't have any questions. Shall I make a motion?
Yeah, sure.
I just have one question for staff. Isn't it premature to review this application prior to at least approval in principle in the site plan? We're asking for floor space ratio, an increase. Should, I'd feel a whole lot safer approving this if there was approval in principle.
Perhaps the applicant can indicate what stage he's at with that process.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are expecting approval in principle any day now. We've gone through a full site plan submission, a resubmission. We've provided the digital plans to the city, so it's anticipated at any moment now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I also note that the file planner is here, and he's indicated that there has been a lot of work on this site, and that he would support this variance request.
Thank you.
So this is a very simple application. I would like to make a motion to application be approved.
All right, second. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-35, 47 Floyd Street. Support or opposition? Come forward, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's Adrian Dick, the homeowner.
Good morning. Did you have an opportunity to review staff support?
I did, yeah. And in agreement. And
Okay.
the condition of the building permit, of course, is actually how all this started. So we'll be doing that.
Okay, great. Pretty straightforward application. Questions, comments? Motion?
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that this application be approved as per staff report.
Second? All in favor? Carried. Done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next application is A 2018-36, 810 Frederick Street. Support or opposition? Come forward, please.
Is Jonathan Bender. I'm here in support of the application. I'm the agent.
All right. Anyone have any questions or comments?
It's just a difference of 0.07 meters, so it's fairly simple application, and I do not have any questions.
Motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that this application be approved.
Second? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Next application, A 2018-37, 396 Victoria Street. Anyone support or opposition? Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Have you had an opportunity to review staff report?
Correct.
Okay, just a comment for staff. Should we maybe, because we're making this specific to the uses on site as of today, correct? Should we put in there pursuant to a current square foot ratio? That might be a prudent idea. Because otherwise there's really nothing to, the medical could almost all of a sudden take over the entire site and it would comply.
I would be fine with that if the applicant is fine with that too. So.
All right.
Can I ask what the square footage restrictions would be? Like
It's as existing today.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
that would also be witnessed or evidenced in an occupancy permit that he would have as well for the site. So that would be another way of ensuring what is there today. So
Right, so we should just tie that in somehow, I think, right? Because
That's fine.
otherwise with this and then this being the approval, it's kind of open-ended.
Yes,
The way that I saw it, so, okay. So I'd like to amend that then. I don't know if you want to do it by way of a chart to insert into it, or if you want it by wording such as pursuant to the current square foot ratio at the time of approval of the application, or the final decision, I guess.
It would likely be best if we add a third condition saying the approval is as per the request of the state, and square footage I can get from planning staff after the fact.
Sure.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Third condition?
Yeah. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve as amended.
Second. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
All right. Next application is A 2018-38, 105 Brubaker Street. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Jamie Adam, agent for the owner. We've reviewed staff's recommendations, the three of them, and have no concerns and are in support of those.
All right. It's a fairly straightforward application. Again, any questions or comments?
None for me, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve as noted in the staff report.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, sir, your name? Right.
Jamie Adam.
Thank you.
Funny how quickly. Next application is A 2018-16, 3 Chapel Hill. Anyone support or opposition, come forward, please.
Hello, good morning. My name is Mike Nielsen. I'm the owner of the property. Gone through the comments provided, and it all looks good to me.
Okay. And you're in opposition? Okay. Yeah, there's a little button there.
Thank you. My name is Natalie Richardson. I live at 424 Carindale Drive, and I'm opposing this.
Okay. Just before we carry on, just a couple house cleaning things here. There's some regional conditions that need to be considered. And I'm not sure if this is adequately covered off in the recommendations or not, but there seems to be an issue with the driveway as it currently exists. It's outside of the property, substantially outside of the property boundaries on the survey I have shown here. So that should be addressed or looked at as well when we're considering this. Okay. Turn it over to you, sure.
To me?
Yeah.
Okay. You want why I oppose it?
Yes, please.
So my husband and I bought this house 2007 specifically because of all the lots in the area are large, ranging from 1/3 to half acre. So I think our lot is 1/3 of an acre. For a budget, we could have purchased a larger home on a smaller lot with closer neighbors. We chose the smaller home with the open field of the larger lots, and plus it's in the Carindale area. I think it's a heritage area, if I'm not mistaken. This was planned to be our forever home. We have multiple windows and a front porch and deck that overlooks the lot. We do not agree with the change as it is substantially changes our home, which is very important to us. As well, the change is being done by a developer to make money. It is not a resident updating their home. So it's not an existing home that they're updating. They're going to build a new home with a driveway and, you know, I was here last month and there was homeowners and talking about blowing materials because they're building homes right next to them. So there also is an email I just received from somebody, I don't think they're here, and they're opposing it as well because of the cultural area of Carindale. And that's why we bought this house, and we don't want anything to change to it, the area. When you drive down Carindale Drive, it says now entering Carindale, and that's part of why we decided to purchase there.
All right, thank you.
I'm not sure if that email is going to be read out. They asked for it to be, but that's not.
We
to me.
received an email on this, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Back to the driveway issue as well. Do you see what I mean? To staff?
May I comment on that?
Sorry,
Sure.
I didn't hear the question,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chair.
Just staff's comment in regards to the driveway issue, which probably should be addressed right now, I would think.
We have our transportation person here with respect to that. Do you have a concern with the driveway issue? Yeah.
I don't have any concerns with the driveway.
The driveway to me seems to be, the asphalt driveway seems to be substantially on the city's property. And I'm just wondering as to whether there's enough room to meet parking requirements on the private property.
I'm having trouble understanding you. Sorry, it's the echoing in here.
The driveway is substantially on the city property as it currently exists right now, and I'm wondering if there is enough driveway on the private property, on the applicant's property, to meet requirements. If you look at the survey, you'll see it at the top. There's actually probably an encroachment of a deck that's on city lands as well, by the looks of it.
I believe this has been addressed on page 1 of the site servicing and grading plan. You can see an extension of that existing driveway.
Okay, I'm talking to staff right now, thanks. Would that be covered under paragraph number 9 in the recommendation? You don't have the same one, I do. See that? Do you have that? That setback there has been addressed, okay?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have any concerns with the
And so it
driveway.
appears that it is addressed then to the proposed driveway on the survey. All right, I'm sorry I missed that. Probably because the other one was nice and colored. All right. So regional conditions, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, these are very substantially large lots. I think that they are in keeping with the neighborhood. I support the staff recommendation to approve, subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is A 2018-24. Support or opposition?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Trevor Hawkins from MHBC Planning here in support of staff's recommendation.
All right, there's regional conditions once again for this application that need to be inserted, and there is a requested amendment, is there not, for this one?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there's been a request to amend condition number 8, and I believe some suggested wording has been provided to you through staff. And would you like me to read that suggested wording, or?
No, I don't think so. I have a copy of it here, so that'll be noted. It just is to change house to building. All right, so that will be amended in that wording. Is there any other questions or comments?
Shall I?
Yeah, motion.
Okay, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve this application as amended staff report.
Second? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is B 2018-25, 50 Brookside Crescent. And here, support or opposition?
Good morning. My name is Michael Kraus. I'm the owner, and I'm in support.
Okay, Mike, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
I have, yes.
You don't have any questions or comments?
No, I'm in agreement with all the conditions.
Pretty straightforward. All right. Any other questions or comments or motion?
I have none.
Me neither, so I would like to make a motion that this application be approved as per staff recommendations.
Second? All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Next application is B 2018-26, B 2018-27. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Heather Price. I'm a planner with GSP Group here on behalf of the applicant. I'm in support of staff's recommendation, although I had a few requested minor revisions to wording that were submitted to staff that I'm happy to present here this morning.
I think staff is in support of the revisions.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I am in support of the changes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that this application be approved as per amended staff report.
All right, second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is B 2018-28, 29, 39, and 40, 119 to 127 Rockcliffe Drive. Anyone here support or opposition? Come forward, please.
Good morning. Nick Bogart, agent for the applicant. We've reviewed the staff report and don't have any concerns with the staff recommendations.
All right. Fairly straightforward application. Anyone here have any comments or questions or motion?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair, so shall I make a motion?
If you want.
I was waiting for Mr. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that this application be approved as per staff recommendations.
All right, second. All in favor? Carried. Thanks.
Thanks very much.
All right. Last applications for the day. B 2018-30, 41, 42, 151 Fifth Ave. Support or opposition, come forward, please. Once again, there's regional conditions that will need to fall into any recommendations that are considered. You are the applicant. Have you had a chance to review staff's report?
Everything's fine. I just want to make sure that they're aware that I'm not planning on building for the next year to 2 years, just because I have another project on the go. I noted it in my application, but I was asked to still apply for a variance for the proposed dwelling.
Okay. There's no time constraints on this that I can see. You, sir?
Good morning. My name's Fred Wazlewski. I live at 157 Fifth Avenue, the neighbor to 151 Fifth Ave. And I have a couple of concerns. The backyard variance that he is applying for is going to be 3.35 meters rather than 7.5. And with that being said, I purchased my home a year ago, and it was a very nice, quiet area. I had no house beside me. Now this house is going to be going up, and it's going to be overlooking my whole backyard. So my privacy will be, it'll be cut down drastically. And another point I wanted to make is for grading. I have a little dip on the side of my house, and the way the empty lot now drains, it drains onto 45 off of the property, and I just want to make sure that it's graded properly so I do not have any leaks in my basements due to this new build.
Okay. Grading would be addressed at the time of building permit. They have to have grading approved and not permitted to shed water off of their property onto a neighbor's property, so that would deal with that. Do you have any fencing currently right now on the property line? Fencing. Is there fences now?
Yes, there is a 5-foot fence right now. But the plans are to be a 2-story going next door, so the 5-foot fence would be kind of irrelevant.
Okay.
Sorry, am I?
Sure.
The drainage issue that he's speaking about is actually my neighbor's lot, not mine. That's the property in behind mine. And in terms of the actual rear yard, that would actually be in line with where his deck is, and where the fence line is actually higher. It wouldn't go anywhere past that. That's again my rear neighbor's lot. And in terms of it overlooking, it would be the same as to what his property is now doing to mine, which is now overlooking my yard space.
Okay, is there any trees back there currently? Because I noticed that they're looking for a tree preservation plan, so is there trees back there right now? Trees. Is there trees back there right now?
There is none between the lot and my place.
Okay.
There was trees before, but they were all cut down on the adjacent lot.
Okay. Just curious because they were looking for a tree preservation plan, so one way to just, to assist with any encroachments of privacy is trees, so. Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Stevenson is here if you need some further information regarding the tree preservation and why it was asked for.
Through the chair, a preliminary tree management plan was submitted with the application, and that was reviewed by environmental staff in the planning division. The recommendations of that tree management plan will be cemented within the conditions that are proposed as part of my recommendation. And to offer some certainty on the grading issue, it's definitely a valid concern, and it's something that our engineering department will review as part of the building permit application process. And I would draw your attention to recommendation 2, sub G paragraph, which would require that a grading plan is submitted and approved, and that would ensure that grading is in compliance with the city stormwater management plan and the building code.
Does that help with some of your concerns? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
None from me, Mr. Chairman. I'd be prepared to make a motion to approve this subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
And the regional condition.
Sorry, I just want to make it clear, the applicant is aware you have to fulfill the conditions within 1 year for the consent application, regardless of whether you're building. Oh, I just You have a one-year timeline for the conditions?
Yes. No, I was just a little bit confused regarding the rear yard variance for the proposed dwelling, just because I'm
No problem.
focusing on the severance. That's why.
I just want to make sure that was clear,
Yeah.
that the conditions,
Thanks.
there's a one-year timeline on that.
Right. Second, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. First, second, all in favor? Carried. Yes.